Darlene, somebody named iPad, Julie, and Laura.
Perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second painting webinar of 2022. Today is Friday, January 21st, and we're excited that you are joining us for this very special session in which we're going to paint a glass of water. So we sent an email yesterday, and we tried to add as many enticing and inspiring bits in that email as possible to sort of like go beyond the obvious, it's just a glass of water, and into the more inspirational. So I'm gonna first introduce to the fantastic Jen Eldridge Hansen. Hi, Jen.
Hello. What a welcome. What a greeting. Hi, everybody.
Thanks for being there. And yeah, so we will sketch for about like 40 minutes or so, and then we're gonna move forward to first color notes, second color notes. Hi everyone, thank you. And so yeah, and this will be recorded on a webinar format, so you can interact with us through the chat, or we also added Jen's phone number, cell phone, in case you need something, but we're keeping it this way. So if anyone wants to register in the future, they can do so. And then we're gonna stop the recording after the 2 hours. We're gonna take a break, and then after that, no recording, and it's gonna be an open forum. So a total of 3 hours, but it just flies super quickly. And it took me a while this morning to understand or set up, or you know, it wasn't easy. As we know, setting up, it's not easy. It takes time, and the creative process starts then. So I'm gonna switch the camera, but essentially, oops. Let me see. Okay, here we go. And I'm just gonna move this. I think that's gonna be it. I think so. So, well, you know, the glass of water, I'm trying to show the glass of water, but it's not gonna happen. But yeah, so I found this post, and I'm gonna do it from live. I'm doing it from live. And then I'm going to take a picture at the end of the session and continue working for the next couple of weeks. So I have a reference as well. But I was inspired by the painting a day from that painter that did a glass of water, and how amazing it is to actually produce a single painting in a day. And obviously, he probably doesn't have anything else to do. I know that he used to sell the paintings on eBay. I don't know about now because they're more expensive, but I thought it would be interesting to just do that, be a little bit more spontaneous and work perhaps a little bit faster and embrace a lot more randomness. So yeah, let's kind of like do it. So when I have something in front of me, composition becomes much more important than if I had a photograph. Why? Because a photograph already gives a sense of the arrangement of the objects within a format. But with a still life, I just have to think a little bit more. So first of all, as usual, introducing my format. It's a 12 by 16. I'm gonna do vertical orientation. It's Arliss, yeah, cotton paper. So that's going to be my painting surface, but essentially take time to decide not only the format size, but also the orientation, because that's fundamental. We started this series actually yesterday. Wait, no, 2 days ago. Yes, oh my gosh, at the Lowe's Hotel, and it was fantastic. And there were some new people that joined us, and as much as we try to articulate how important composition is. It's so hard to actually understand. So it's an interesting process. But anyhow, so I'm going to decide to do something a little bit different here. So I have a lot of like space. And instead of like centering things here, by the way, there are tons of paintings of glasses of water for sale online. It seems to be a popular still life. We didn't know about it until we started searching about it. There's I believe it's the Artsy store or the Artsy gallery. The paintings of glasses of water that were featured there were all pretty much sold. So not only it's a popular subject, apparently, that we didn't know about, but it's a very well appreciated and people actually purchase. So there are many paintings of glasses of water that look very similar. So my suggestion would be to kind of like think creatively and try a composition that may be a little bit different, or use something in the background or some kind of like light that maybe creates a different approach. But anyhow, I think what I'll do is I'm gonna get inspired by one painting, maybe like two paintings that we put on the shared folder. And I always forget the Royal Academy guy that did the blue pots. But I love the fact, I'm gonna find out right now, that he left a lot of like negative space. His name is William Scott.
Yeah, it was like William something.
Yeah, I don't know. I should know by now. But anyhow, so I like this composition a lot, and I love the fact that there's a lot of negative space. So compositionally, I'm going to try something in which the glass of water will be situated in the lower part, and I'm going to leave a lot of space. So that will just give me an opportunity to, I'm going to give it a try. Yeah, something like this. I'm just going to do my first potato shape. So with the purpose of finding out how this is going to relate with the format that I'm using. I think that's okay. I have an option to put it in the center. I think I'm going to leave it in the center. I think that's good. And then, so we were mentioning during the session the other day that using the edge, actually this is going to work out. This is going to work out. I'm going to leave one. I'm going to play with the coinciding axis of the middle of the format to match the axis of the glass. But then the small table, I'm just going to create an off-center axis. So I'm trying to play with shapes, sizes, and negative space in order to create something a little bit less predictable. Okay, so I think that's good. And then this, I feel like this is going to be helpful for several reasons. It's a much smaller painting area, so I won't have to put as much work. Also, the negative space becomes so big that I think that kind of creates a little bit of non-predictable composition. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go for. So this is going to be, yeah. So I'm going to talk about cylinders, cylindric shapes, cylindric sections, axis lines, and symmetry right now. So this is, I'm going to try to make it short, but this is going to be the most technical aspect of the session. So cylindric shapes are really great because they provide an opportunity to work with symmetry. We can always simplify or, I would say simplify a cylindric shape by creating what's called an axis line. An axis line, it's a line, an imaginary, non-visible line that runs through the core, the center of the cylinder. So I'm going to use the analogy of a candle. So a candle is a cylindric object, and the wick of the candle running through the candle, that would be the axis line of the candle. So every single cylindric shape could be simplified by using an axis line. So why are axis lines so helpful when we draw cylindric shapes? They are helpful because they allow us to position the cylinder easier in an easier way. They're also helpful because if we have an axis line, it becomes easier to draw the left side and relate it to the other side, left or right. So an axis line provides like symmetry mirror space in which we can compare left and right of the cylinder. So in addition to that, sometimes when we create cylindric shapes that don't have straight lines, we did some glasses of wine, for example, 2 nights ago. Anything that has a curvature, sometimes it's much harder to create the symmetry on the other side. So having this axis line helps in doing the same thing, but on the other side. Also, something that may be very helpful, if you have like a glass or a cup with a stem, sometimes we make things that we think they're vertical on the format, but they're actually not vertical. They may be a little bit skewed or tilted. So sometimes doing a longer axis line will help us visually create a much more vertical object, because we can compare that axis line directly with the sides of the format. So axis line, whether it's a simple cup or something much more complex, or with curvature, or with a long stem, or with any patterns on the glass, it's always helpful. So I think that's it, right? So axis line symmetry. Oh, I'm going to talk about the sections. Possibly the most overlooked aspect of creating the illusion of a cylinder is the fact that we don't even think about the sections of the cylinder. What makes this, what will make this look like a cylinder, it's not the sides of the shape. It's going to be the section of the cylinder. The section of the cylinder is the place where the cylinder is cut. So on something like this, there are several sections of the cylinder, not just the bottom, but also the top, and also the line of water inside of the glass. So there are several. Sometimes you can even look at, I have a lot of like glass underneath. So there's another section right there. So I have several sections. So those sections, the sections of a cylinder, they're always an oval shape. They are never an almond shape. So I want to make sure that we make this distinction between oval versus almond shape. An oval shape has round sides. An almond shape ends with like 2 points. So sometimes we try to create the illusion of a cylindric shape, and instead of doing an oval, we create almond shape. So make sure that when you do the section, you actually create a round line, especially on each side. Something like this. And then I'm just going to go in and make it a little bit more exaggerated because it needs to be rounder. I don't know the reason why. I'm sure that there may be a reason, but sometimes that oval shape looks more like a sausage than an oval. So there is something that makes an oval, and that is rhythm. There is rhythm in the sense that the lines that separate an oval, they do so in a very rhythmic way. They don't just separate and then become flat and then they just conjoin again. There is a rhythm in that curvature. So look at the section, the first section of that cylinder. Find out if you've done an almond shape versus an oval shape. It should be an oval shape. And then in addition to that, find out if the lines, especially on top, at the bottom, they're too straight, too horizontal. If they are, we need to expand or build on that curvature and make it a little bit more rhythmic. So I'm going to do the other section at the bottom. And, you know, sometimes I think it's always, I'd say sometimes and always in the same sentence. I should say almost always. It's a good idea to do the full section of the cylinder on a cylindric shape, even if you don't see it. So at the bottom of the glass, I don't see behind, I don't see the edge behind the glass. But what I'm doing right now is just doing the oval and then continuing that behind. And why do I do that? I know that if I do it this way, sort of like with the same principle behind the axis line being that symmetry support, I know that my curvature here has a better chance to be rhythmic and organic if I have another curvature on the other side, whether I see it or not, that allows me to compare it. So it's mostly because of that sense of comparing what's visible and what's invisible. So that's another suggestion. I'm going to go through the technical aspect and then we can have a little bit more of a relaxed approach. I'm going to do the line. Oh my gosh, my glass needs to be much taller. Okay, so this is when the fact that I didn't do much work allows me to make tons of changes. So I'm just going to do the glass a little bit taller because the water line it's higher than half. And I'm just going to do it this way. Here we go. So yeah, I just raised the glass. Oh, that was cheesy. I raised the glass. It was too short, and I put water enough so I could see the back line, whatever that line is, on the other side through the opening. I just wanted to play with multiple sections of the cylinder too, so it becomes a little bit more interesting. So if you paint it from live or from a photograph, technically speaking, none of the sections of that cylinder will have the same oval shape. There will be variations on the width of that oval. If I look at the glass from a lower eye level, I'll see this oval a little bit thinner, and then maybe this one a little bit bigger. So this has to do with visual perspective, but we're not going to go into any technical aspect defining that. The only thing that we're going to mention is the fact that as we continue painting and go with the imprimatura and then all the layers, we will be able to recognize that the curvature changes depending on the section that we're working on. So we cannot repeat the same oval as we develop and expand and create more of a distinct look. So yeah, for now, I'm just pretty much doing it similarly, like all the sections have a similar approach. And then there is another section of the cylinder that it's the bottom of the glass. So this one feels like super narrow because the water of the glass acts as a distorting lens. So we're going to talk about distortion also later. But for now, I just wanted to create section on the glass. Notice that this is a little bit narrower, more slender than the opening. So already kind of like only by using our observational approach, we are able to understand that there is the distinction between the different sections. So if we do the same width on all the sections, then we're not going to create as much illusion of perspective. So, but anyhow, so something so simple, it's such a great opportunity to talk about. Let me see, like there's a little angle on the side. I think that's it. So as we know, with a sketching, with a drawing component or layer, we try not to overwork it, because we can easily get engaged with building a beautiful illusion, and then we start with the imprimatura, and then everything washes off. So I think what I'll do instead is kind of like support it. My table is also kind of like a section of an cylinder. It is. So notice what I'm doing to create continuity. I almost draw the line, because I know that if I don't, this line will feel like a gap or a step. So I create a soft ghostly line that allows me to connect one side with the other side. Okay, there's always something fun in doing it from live, because you know that there's no distortion through a lens. So there's distortion always, but it's more direct. So I'm glad I'm doing this live, and then I can always take a picture, although the picture will look different, but I can always build the details later based on the picture. But I think, yeah, I think so. My axis line, I'm realizing that the left and the right, whoops, are different. So I think I'm just gonna move a tad the left and also the right, both, not just one. And how do I notice that? I notice that because of the axis line. This is a little bit better. Oh, in my case, because I don't have any light projected here, and that's okay. That's okay. There's nothing I can do about it, and I'm not going to do anything about it. But I don't have any shadow or reflection, which it could be good and bad. It's good because that means I have to worry less about that. There's a little bit of a cast shadow. I have light coming from different directions. It's bad because it doesn't give this painting the drama that it could have with that shadow. So just pick your battle. You can simplify it, or you can make it more dramatic. It's always good to side on the dramatic part of the battle, but if you don't have it, then that's totally fine. So I don't have it anyhow. And then what I'll do really briefly before moving to the imprimatura, I'm going to start doing darker to lighter. So after the linear approach, it's always a good idea to create a sense of like value. We don't have to be precise, but just kind of like prioritizing darker areas first. Yeah, something like this. I'm going to remove this. Maybe just shade it a little bit more. And I think this is going to be my sketching process, and it's perfect. It's just half an hour, so a little bit less than half an hour between introduction and everything. So that makes me very excited because it means I could just dedicate more time to painting. But before I move, how are you, Jen? I know you're just recording that.
I'm here. I'm here. Sorry, but you know how your mouse gets all the way to the other side of the computer?
Oh my gosh, sorry. It's always, with unannounced, call your name. You don't have to respond.
No. I'm here. I'm taking some beautiful pictures, some notes. So
Okay. Yeah,
all
thank you.
is well.
I know that you're doing a million things at the same time and that you're taking notes, and those notes will be on the recap document. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm pausing a little bit, because there was a lot of technical stuff and I want to make sure you have time to organize.
Oh, thanks, friend. I think I got it all. Access lines, cylindrical shape, ovals, not almonds. Yeah,
Cool.
I think I got it.
Perfect.
We'll see.
Yeah, no. Your notes are amazing, because sometimes I know that I forget things, obviously, but it's nice to have that in case you don't want to go through the video and you want to get the essential points of the lesson. Seeing the different stages on the notes and then the recap concepts, it already automatically puts you in a place where you already kind of like start and you know which direction to take. So yeah, thank you for that.
Good. Yay, my pleasure.
And before I move on, the Imprimatura, I'm just gonna bring up the book of the season. We're reading What Painting Is, and I'm not completely fully done with the book yet, but there's so much and to cover, and it's so wonderful. It's not excessively technical, but there's some technical aspects. But I just I'm gonna read a couple of sentences, because I feel like he uses almost like a poetry to define painting. Anyhow, so this is and the whole point is that he uses alchemy, the language of the alchemist, to define painting. So painting is the art of metamorphosis, never thinking, never planning, never pausing long enough to formulate a strategy. So I think that's a beautiful concept. Sometimes we get frustrated because we want to measure too much. We want to control too much. We want to, we have an expectation. Everything needs to fit. So just reading this sort of like released that kind of like pressure. The understanding or thinking painting as a metamorphosis, more of a natural approach to developing something, a process in which you never think, you never plan, you never pause long enough to formulate a strategy. So just go with the flow, essentially. And the whole chapter, this chapter in particular, is about this process of metamorphosis applied to painting. As painters say, the paint seems to have a mind of its own. It wants to do certain things and it resists the painter. So another reason why I like books, because I'm with a pen, not even a pencil, just like underlining all these kind of like amazing sentences. So anyhow, others have learned to let paint do what it wants, so that painting becomes a collaboration between the artist's desire and the unpredictable tendencies of the paint. So just with this sentence alone, it's just so much to unpack, but I'm just gonna read it for myself, essentially. I love the understanding of the painting process as a collaboration. I'm just on the same chapter, just 2 pages, and how cleverly he builds the momentum to explain that in the end, what we're doing is trying to reconcile what the painting does on its own and what we want the painting to do. So I think, to me, even though this is very fluffy and lyrical and beautiful, this idea of let go let go of controlling too much. It's hard to do, but I think that it's at the core of understanding painting as a collaboration. Painting is such a humbling activity. I think that's why people feel terrified to join our session sometimes. Painting will humble you. And some people that love control and power cannot comprehend, or they reject being in that state of mind. Painting will humble you. Anyhow, so we have the palette, our staple palette with our colors. I'm just going to use a weird brush that I used 2 weeks ago, but that's what it is, because I'm in my studio. And and then the idea, we're going to start with the imprimatura, so which is like a staining, but it sounds so much better when we say it in Italian. The imprimatura is when we apply a very thin layer of paint, traditionally just one single color, as a way to prime the paper, the painting surface, and seal the charcoal. So it's sort of like the first wet step, but it's a very transitional, foundational, preliminary step. So a little bit of the solvent. I have a lot of brown here, so I think I'm just going to do the typical imprimatura with my brush is so bad, but that makes it really good. So completely random brushstroke direction, and understanding the expectation here. The expectation is just to make sure that the paper, the painting surface, because I know that you guys may be using like different painting surfaces. It doesn't matter. Imprimatura applies to any painting surface, by the way. It's not because it's paper or less porous, but there's this idea where we need like a wet layer first. And this wet layer, the particulars of the wet layer are that it's very thin in consistency. So it has a lot of, a little bit of that brown in here. So how do we do this? What are we supposed to know about painting glass and liquid and distortion? Well, I think the first thing that I would say is that don't use white. Even though you're going to see a lot of white and a lot of gray, don't use it yet. We've been going over the 7 steps of painting in the Flemish style. And the reason why we go over every single time, it's because it's a really methodical approach to painting. Every step has its whole thing, you know. The process takes a very long time, but the reason why we bring it up is because the final step in the Flemish style of painting is details. It's the final step after months and months and months of working on your painting. What they did at the end was just apply the details. If you use white, if we use white right now, this will be painting details, because there are a lot of like speckles and segments and lines that feel really bright and very, very white. I would say the first step in painting glass and water is don't paint the highlights yet. So I have a beautiful gray. As a matter of fact, I think we're better off painting or staining the background. I have some gray. So what I'm going to do is I did the surface and then the background. So there you go, surface and background. So here we go. I think that could be a good approach. Always rely on peripheral areas first, and don't worry about things being recognizable or any details. but yeah, I think it's going really well, actually. I can tell you this book has helped me a lot in putting words to feelings and emotions that I have when I paint that I wasn't able to articulate. So it's nice to read someone describe painting in such a way. Another sort of like comparison or analogy, it's a little bit gruesome, but I like it. I'm saying this because my brush is kind of like shedding a little bit and I have a few bristles right here. But at some point in the book, defining it or approaching it as a compliment, he says that the pictorial plane or the painting surface, he compares it or uses the analogy of a graveyard, painting surface as a graveyard, not in the sense that it's the place where the brushstrokes go to die. That would be the initial pessimistic approach that I would take, but the place where particles and things end up getting buried under. So bristles or dust or fibers or this the objects, these foreign objects have been identified in all these amazing paintings that we admire when we go to museums. Those surfaces have a bunch of stuff. So I love this idea of embracing the fact that sometimes something may fall on our painting surface, or as we have experienced before, the entire painting can fall flat on a dusty floor, and we just, you know, we become super frustrated, but then we're always able to quote unquote fix it. So yeah, we were using the concept of the painting surface as a graveyard, in the sense that not only is the place where bugs and dust and bristles end up getting buried, but also is the place where if we overwork our painting too much, we're gonna sort of like keep burying layers of paint constantly, and in the end we'll have a painting graveyard, not in the sense of like having little particles, but in the sense of having layers or paintings underneath. So now that I came to the glass, the first thing that I'm going to do is on the transparent areas, I'm just going to use the same color as the background. So for now, I'm not making too much of a distinction. So there's a little bit of gray right here, and maybe on the sides. And I'm still doing darker to lighter. I'm not going to use white. And there's a super light area right here and right here. During the presentation, we talked about how parts of our painting will be based on abstraction. So I think that's important because we don't have to be extremely specific with shapes or anything like that. Okay, so I think I'm bringing some of the darker brown on the other side. I think that's good. And there's something at the bottom. All right, so this is my imprimatura. Boom, I think I did a fantastic job. Give yourself credit. I'm gonna move some things behind that glass just because I want this gray to really, yeah, I think that's good. Okay, perfect. All right, so 15 minutes before the first hour, and at least personally, I'm done with the imprimatura, and I have learned the hard way, and also by looking at you guys paint, that I have to restrain my application of brushstrokes even more than what I did. So I realized that I can achieve a much greater optical illusion of a aesthetically strong painting if I put less than if I put more. And that's the premise. There's no formula here, but to me, that is something that keeps reoccurring, you know, like for example, on Wednesday night that we have people that join us for the first time, there was a combination of frustration and impatience in the sense that they wanted to kind of like start painting. When are we going to paint? You know, there was a lot of like sketching and stuff, and we went fairly fast. But there was this urgency to start adding paint, and which I think it's normal, I would say, and natural. But at the same time, it was a confirmation for us to understand that there's this rush to add, to compound, and then this in this sort of like hoping that something happens, this kind of like metamorphosis of the paint, hoping that whatever we start stacking up will kind of like create something. Well, you know, yes, that's how painting acts, but at the same time, if you just go too far on that premise of just dumping stuff on the surface and expecting that something may happen, it may just create sort of like a setback and put you like many steps behind. So again, the idea of restraint and not adding too much, it's very important. And I'm going to move to the next step. So we are moving from Imprimatura. I'm going to use the medium brush. From Imprimatura to first color notes. First color notes, the most important part of the process. And I don't have an extra clear sheet, so I'm going to try my best. I actually don't need it because this is like from life. Okay, never mind. Yay, I don't need it. So what is the first color note layer? So this is the part in which I have to do a couple of very important things. Number one, we have an opportunity to address the location of our edges. So with the wash, things kind of like fall into whatever place they want to fall, and then other things get completely diluted. So now I can just bring back a little bit more opacity on my paint. I'm going to use the oil and then rebuild those edges, not only rebuild them, but reposition them. Be aware that if you don't move the edges when you do the first color notes, that will be a red flag. You will be painting by numbers. There's always a change, and in an organic process, that edge constantly moves. So if everything remains in the same position, then stiffness and rigidity starts to creep up, and then we don't know why the painting is really not working, and we cannot point the reasons why, but maybe that could contribute to that frustration. So move things around during the first notes, the first color notes. The second thing, equally important, is that we start processing the color. So we have a raw color palette that's very basic, and now we have to start creating variations, processing the pigments, and then getting into an alchemist mode. Another very beautiful analogy. Sorry, and you know, some of you have heard me say this already, like several times. In describing paint from an alchemist point of view, which is so clever, he equates an art studio to a laboratory. So he proceeds to find the root or the etymology, the origin of the word laboratory. And so there are two Latin words right there, labor or labor, and then ora. So labor means working, developing, creating, experimenting, exploring. It's not just one word, but the word labor, it's the physical aspect. You have to put work. You have to put work. And the word ora means praying or meditating could be another approach. So I love now seeing the art studio, our art studio, our art corner, whatever you work, as our own laboratory in which we put some work in there, we mix and smear and wipe and clean and make things super messy. And we pray something comes out of that work. So anyhow, I just thought it was a really neat approach. So I'm going to go darker to lighter. I'm going to use the oil. And I think I have a clear priority here, which is the surface. And so in my case, I think I'm going to start combining some raw umber and burnt sienna. And then this is good. Maybe a little bit more burnt sienna. I love the reddish note. So what I'm doing, if you notice, I am not just retracing. I'm not just retracing. So if I were retracing my previous stage, I would not be looking at the glass. I would just be focusing on this, like this, and then just reinforcing the lines that I see. But that would create such a disconnect with the actual subject that it would start creating a very rigid, heavy, not very dynamic painting. So what I'm doing instead of retracing is this. I'm looking at a specific line, the bottom. I know that it's approximately right here, but I am just recreating it again based on looking at it. So I'm using what I had before and I'm recreating. And the line is not going to be on the same spot. So there's a distinction between retracing, and recreating. And I feel like that's another thing that I notice when painters, they try the medium for the first time. It's really hard to break through retracing. Our brains are sort of like stuck with this idea that painting means that I have to just scoop up some paint and then apply it right by something that I already have. So yeah, well, that's essentially what we were taught when we were kids. There was no other. It's a clear rule. You're painting a shape, so you stick with the shape. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. For starters, things look different after you spend some time observing. That's for starters. And then when you have spent some time painting, you have a different experience with where the lines actually are. If you put some white there and you're saying, damn it, then it's on you. I told you not to use white. Sorry, that was mean. Sometimes we choose color based on association. We think water. First of all, we think water, blue. So we didn't use any blue on this palette yet. Water, blue, or we say glass, white. So in order to paint glass, we feel like there's an urgency to start using white. But that's not exactly what it looks like. You know, glass is not white. So I'm just gonna continue with that combination of colors. And going back to what I'm doing right now, I'm on the first color nodes, the two most, there's nothing else right now. The two most and only jobs right here that happen at the same time are reworking, recreating the edges, defining them a little bit more, but also reposition. Your drawing has to change. If it doesn't change, it'll become static and rigid and not alive. And number two, processing the color. Find a color direction that you can create by mixing different tones. Rely on neutrals. First, always a good idea. And yeah. So the only, so Jen, the only famous, I tried Berthe Morisot, I tried other painters and see they had like a glass of water, but they didn't. So they had vases, they had glass, they had bottles. The only one I found was the Van Gogh with the glass of water and almond tree branch blooming. But yeah, I couldn't
Nobody
find...
with like a pitcher of water? That seems like it would be...
Yeah, maybe a pitcher, yeah. Yeah, maybe a pitcher, yeah. But
I can see what I can find.
First question for you. This is such a silly question, but when was glass first used in a cup? Because that painting from the, I think it was the 1700s, the earliest that we found, that was a glass cup, a glass cup. But I just wonder how far. I'm guessing a long time ago. Never mind. I think like the Egyptians had glass, right?
That's exactly what I found. It says the production of glass vessels began in Mesopotamia and Egypt in about the 16th century BCE. During Egypt's 18th dynasty, glass vessels produced under the patronage of the royal family were used as gifts to powerful persons.
The glass.
Let's see, when glass was used in England, dates back to 680 AD in northern England. By the 1200s, the industry had spread to include areas around the Weald, Surrey, Sussex, and Chiddingford.
Interesting.
And it looks like cups in the 1600s were called beakers, from the Middle English word used for drinking glass with a wide mouth, and was used in the 17th century to describe a straight-sided container of silver, pewter, pottery, or glass made with a flaring rim. Voila.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Sure. Let me see if I can find it. I mean, I doubt that I can if you couldn't, but.
So when I was also researching, there were a couple of articles about the origins of still life paintings as a trend. So which doesn't date that far back as a trend, not as far back as the actual objects. So the actual style of still life, I wouldn't say it's recent, but it's certainly
right.
The point that I'm making is that in those old still life paintings, glass wasn't featured that much. It was mostly metal or pottery, and then food and flowers, anything botanical, anything that gave you the idea of nature. I think that was the emphasis.
Interesting. I wonder if that was just an aesthetic um, that was chosen or what was handy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of symbolism
Yeah.
and involved. Yeah, I don't know, it's interesting, but so I'm gonna make another sort of like technical approach because I just moved. I should probably work on the background, and I think I'm gonna continue the first color notes doing the background. But in case you are trapped or the glass of water trapped you already, and you find yourself swirling strokes, stop. There's one point in the glass of water that feels like the natural first step. So you have heard us say that areas of high contrast on a subject are always a good way to enter that subject in a painting way. So depending on the reflection of the light, don't worry about the glass part yet. And the reason is because, meaning the glass without liquid inside. The reason is because the areas that are gonna have the more contrast, generally speaking, are gonna be the areas that are on both sides of the line of water. So if you ask us where or what to do first, where your brushstroke should go, they should be focused mostly on the line, the water level. The water level is the anchor point for everything else. So start by painting the contrast or the darker areas rather than contrast. The darker areas that you may be able to see on the water level. If you have something that's white underneath, that possibly that's not gonna work out because you're only gonna see maybe the water level and perhaps a little bit of a soft distinction between surface of the water and the side of the glass. It just depends, but I would say regardless if there's high contrast or not, the water level is the keyhole where you enter that subject. That's it. Jen, what were you saying? Did you find anything else? Or?
There's like one, painting that Cezanne has a glass in the background, but I don't even think it's filled with water. It looks like it's next to a jug and it's kind of like a wine glass. So I wonder if it's, there for the wine.
Yeah.
And then I found, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just, I didn't check Vermeer, by the way, because I know that there's a painting of that person pouring water in a sink or something like that.
Yes, I found that one too, but it's, I believe it's pottery.
Pottery, yeah.
Yeah, it's pottery, but I can definitely still.
Yeah, and he has no, because he was so amazing with the optical illusions of the surface quality. That I almost think like, it's kind of like strange that he doesn't have any cup of water or glass of water. Maybe people didn't drink water from a glass. That's why, glass cups existed, but maybe that's not what people used to drink water.
Right. Maybe something more sturdy.
Yeah. So I did some work on the water level, but I caught myself just getting trapped already by the subject. And instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to build some opacity on the other side of the positive space, the focal point. So it just feels like I'm building strength. I'm building, foundation. So I have to work less on the actual water glass and transparency. And as far as I'm concerned, this already looks like a glass of water. So I can relax, and I haven't added that much work on it. So sometimes we are the only ones to blame when we feel like we put ourselves in a corner. We go in with the best of intentions, but then we just don't measure things right, or maybe we just go full force and it's an overkill. It's an overkill. I also, let me see if I can just bring it back. Anything, because of like Wayne Thiebaud and Wayne Thiebaud's passing, I think it was on the news just a few days. I was in Spain. I was flying back and I saw it online. And I think people just did the thing to do and, you know, rip Wayne Thiebaud, whatever. But it's always nice to read some messages, some sentences, if they exist, of painters, and then kind of like relate to what they say. Sorry, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, the two. Oh no, I just put one. If you stare, yeah, I just put that. If you stare at an object, as you do when you paint, there's no point at which you stop learning things from it. He once said, but then I just mentioned, I'll find it. Maybe Jen, if you can help me. Something he said about beginning, being a beginner painting. Oh, that there's the joy of painting is precisely that you always feel like a beginner, because if you would know what to do always, there would be no point in doing it. So yeah.
I love that. I love that about art forms in general, is that there's no limit. It's limitless. It's bottomless. You know, it's something you can always study, and it will always be different and more.
Yeah, it's
and that
like
you kind of grow with
up,
it.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. It brings you up. You grow with it, or it grows with you.
Yeah. Philip Guston, oh my God, yesterday I tried, we have a quote, I think it's on our website, on our About page. We have a quote by Philip Guston that for him, painting from the point of view and the experience of a beginner was fundamental. And it's so interesting, Jen, because when someone comes to our session, our class, or whatever you want to call it, for the first time, and they say, I've never painted in my life, with terror. And you and I say, perfect.
Yeah.
If only they would know that this is what painters that have dedicated their lives to painting have come to realize. It would be so much easier to kind of like jump into it. We approach it as this is like the worst possible thing. You know, I'm joining this group and I have no freaking idea. I've never done it before. When this is the precise spirit that these painters chased after their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it ironic?
That's so great.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. But yeah, we're not gonna, yeah. We can. We can tell them that. You say, listen.
Yeah, they won't believe us.
And sometimes we get some questions saying, is there a beginner's class? And I forget, sometimes I answer those questions like one way or another, but I think we should just kind of like say every class is a beginner's class. That's gonna be the answer from now on.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
so
always something to learn, that's for sure.
yeah, I think the colors are already changing. I'm already seeing like a bunch of things that, I don't know, I almost feel like cheated. The fact that, I start processing the colors, but then boom, something comes up. I said, no, this is not the color. How is it possible that I just spent all this time making a color, and now I just see that this is frosty, or this is not, it's darker, or it's just so fascinating how we're always chasing after. And that's one of the, I think, reasons why painting humbles you. You will never be able to quite get it. Okay, so I think I'm gonna dedicate some time later to expand this, but I don't want to spend too much time because we're already way into our second hour. And I'm still going to, let me just kind of like figure out a little bit of a strategy. I think I'm going to start working on first color nodes inside of the glass. So I'm not going to move to second nodes yet. So I'm going to go darker to lighter with the medium brush. And then I'm going to try to apply with pixelated brush strokes. I'm going to try to apply some spots. So think, when you think water, we think liquid, we think fluid. But I feel like when it comes to painting, we need to deconstruct the concept, because what we're going to do is block things out. We're going to create spots. We're going to create tiny shapes. So I feel like there's an exercise in changing the premise from liquid in our minds to kind of like pixelated brushstrokes. So I think that's what I'm going to try to do, which is see one spot, one shape, one area that I can identify as a little bit darker, and then just pencil it in to the best of my ability. So I am focused, concentrated, observant. I'm flickering my eyes back and forth. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to facilitate the process of translating by only looking at the darker spots. Think of this glass of water as a spotted surface, a flat surface with a bunch of stains. Don't think of it as something cylindric or something that is made of a solid and a liquid, and then I get overwhelmed. I'm going to paint the solid different than the liquid, and then how are we going to do the liquid? Forget about that. It's just a flat spotted surface. Start with the darks wherever you see them. On the surface, I'm seeing a little bit of a darker area right here, and it's not brownish, so I'm going to try to apply it. The water line is our support, so the area where we can kind of like branch off. So if you feel like you don't know or which order to follow, always go back to the water level, that line. It just gives you a more solid point of distinction between one thing, between different surfaces. So I'm just going to slowly build on the darker areas. I try not to, I'm using the oil, and I try not to overwork. So I'm not, look at this, it looks beautiful. I'm not dragging the paint, I'm not sweeping, I'm not mopping. Sometimes I feel like when we feel lost, or we feel like, you know, we lost control, we start womping. I saw a video the other day, someone was making fun of a chef from the 50s, and she was talking over the video and trying to make it funny, and she used the word womp a lot, just womp it in here, and I just thought it was so good. Anyhow, just going back to this, refrain from womping stuff on the, I don't even know what that word means and if it's good or not, but refrain from womping stuff on the surface. Just, you're better off observing than just moving the brushstroke aimlessly. If you feel like, or if you find yourself just mopping that area, just drop the brush and observe. Your painting will be so much better if you don't keep adding layers. So when in doubt, stop, observe. Okay, so there's these two areas, and slowly I'm becoming a little bit, I'm not doing the outside rim yet, because again, I think it makes more sense from an efficient point of view to anchor or enter the glass of water through the water level. And then to me, the rim of the glass is a detail. So as far as I'm concerned, trusting the Flemish painters, that could be perfectly done at the very end, the rim of the glass. So, okay, I think I just got the darks, and I'm gonna use a soft gray to do the other areas. It's a soft gray. So I'm using a little bit of gray and white. And again, I'm using a very spotty brush stroke. I'm not dragging too much. It's important to focus your attention and set your mind into not thinking fluid versus solid. This could be anything. When we paint, you know, that doesn't matter the subject. We always use the same approach with a different strategy, but so yeah. Anyhow. Jen, any other? I also looked for, I think Caravaggio had that painting of the scorpion or the snake or something, the boy that gets bitten.
Ooh.
I love that painting.
The boy and the scorpion?
I think it's a snake, or I think it's a snake, and it's inside of a vase, and he puts a hand inside and he gets bitten by it. It's a hilarious painting. And I think there's glass surface. Speaking of Caravaggio, I think that the Palace in Italy finally sold, but a much lower price. It was on the news yesterday. You know, there was the only fresco that he ever did.
Right. And it was like $1 billion or something.
It was $500 million, and there wasn't a single bid. No one bid on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
And I think they sold it for $300 million.
Okay, this is hysterical, this painting.
Isn't
it's
it?
I mean,
is there glass there?
There is glass. I will post it. It's a boy and a lizard, evidently.
A lizard, okay.
But yeah.
It's what do we call the portraits with expression?
Oh, the tropes.
The
What's it called? or something like that.
Yeah,
I think
trolley,
that's what,
not trolley, but
yeah, something like that.
yeah. So definitely, I think so. Oh, speaking of also glass, which is something that some art critics spend way too much time, but the Leonardo da Vinci Salvator Mundi, he holds a globe of glass on one hand. So if you can pull that off and see if that could work, that would be as an example. It's not water, but
Tell me it one more time, Julio.
Salvator Mundi, Mundi, M-U-N-D-I, by Leonardo da Vinci. By the way, I'm starting to see color. We did use color in the glass of water at the end. We use color in the glass of water, and I can start seeing it. You can see the blues and the soft salmon tones. It's a lot of color, and we're gonna get inspired by the Wayne Thiebaud painting. But I think that's it. So painting the spots. I'm trying to group. I'm grouping things together. So with restraint, there we go. I don't care what this looks like, but yeah. And that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, then I'm gonna work with these edges. I'm being a little rough, but look at this beautiful glass of water. It's magic. So I think I'm ready for my second color notes, and I'm gonna carry the second color notes for from now all the way to the end of the session. So we have a good chunk of time left, and I think it would be a good idea to sort of like zoom in and work on the second color notes. I'm gonna split up this the rest of the session into second color notes, and at the same time building up to details. But if you have a surface in which there's a shadow or highlight featured, then I would partition or divide the rest of the session into 3 periods. Period number 1 would be the surface. It's more important than the glass, actually, to do that first. So I would spend 10 minutes maybe just doing the highs and lows on the surface where the light direction may be coming from. If you have like lighter area on one side and shadows or sort of like blurred smoky areas, without trying to be too descriptive, there's a lot that you can do in creating highs and lows on the surface. The second period, another 10, 12 minutes, would be building some second notes on the glass. And then the third period would be using the white paint to bring the speckles, bringing some color on the water. And by the way, so if you already beyond all that, and then that already went out the door, and then you are on a completely different freeway right now, we will tell you by our experience, which was really helpful 2 days ago, that the color is concentrated on the liquid part, because the water as a group, I guess, or as a contained liquid, is able to make the light refractant. Maybe Jen, you can help me to find the word that defines how light can be partitioned into color. I know that that comes with using a prism to make like refracting the light. Maybe it's called refracting the light. So the water in the glass acts as a prism, a combination of a prism as a lens. Any light that goes through it, thank you, Amanda. Professor, thank you, Professor Amanda. Yes, I appreciate that. We should use that word more often, actually, in painting, because we constantly talk about light, and I notice that some painters use that, express that word, how the light refracts with liquids and stuff like that, refracting. So the colors that happen are basically because of the refracting qualities of the water inside of the glass. So if you add color, just as, let me just bring like the Wayne Thiebaud painting, because there's a lot of color there. It's a lot of color inside and outside. But most of the color, if you notice, I cannot make it bigger, but it's actually in the liquid, inside of the liquid. Look at this black, almost red and yellow ochre on the side, and also the edges. So there's also color outside, but there's a lot of color in this liquid, in this transparent liquid. Not so much on the actual glass per se, although there's a little bit of a refracting light on the edge, but most concentrated in the liquid. So as a suggestion, if you want to bring some interpretations of color because you start seeing it, we suggest you concentrate it in the water. So I'm gonna just bring the small brush, and I'm gonna start, and the color just has changed again. It has changed again. So I'm gonna bring some dark. I'm gonna start with darker darks. I'm gonna start also concentrated on my support system here, which is the actual water level. And I'm gonna rebuild it again. And this time I'm gonna create a lot more contrast. I think I need to start bringing white. I'm gonna start bringing white. I brought some white with the light gray that I did, but I think right now I need to bring the big guns. So I'm gonna concentrate first on the water level. That's your, your floating device. Yeah. Okay, and then at the same time, on the other side, I clean the brush, but I'm gonna start bringing some light white and light blue because I'm starting seeing color on the other side. And again, there's sort of like an exercise here to disassociate the object of our painting and just seeing it as a combination of spots and stains and highlights. So I started introducing some color. There are variations of the color that I had, and this is the definition of second color notes, in which right now I am diversifying or widening the range of values and just concentrated on smaller areas and building those areas one section at a time. So there's another thing, another proposition or technical aspect that happens with the water. So there's going to be a clearer separation between the water level that it's on this side of the glass, also on the other side of the glass. Anything that's close to the axis of the cylinder will be much clearer because will be facing us. But when the water level starts wrapping around the side of the glass of water, that edge will not be as clear. In fact, it may not be even attached to the side. So I'm going to ask you to shift your focus to the water line and the water layers on the side of the glass, and notice how they're not touching the surface. They're disengaged. There are gaps between them, so they don't follow the normal laws of physics there, because there's a distortion. The glass itself, the thickness of the glass separates the water from the outside of the glass, and at the same time, the foreshortening of the side of the cylinder of the glass creates all sorts of distortions. So during this period, if you're there, make it a point, make it a strong point to show distinction between the water line that faces us, whether it's frontal or in the front or behind, and the water line effects on the sides. And that is that. So I'm not doing like super tiny speckles of anything right now. This is a lot of fun, actually. There's a little bit of darkness on the background, so I'm just gonna add that. And I try not to, I try to make my brush, okay, let me just go back to this inspiring line right here. Okay, like I said earlier. Never thinking, never planning, never pausing long enough to formulate a strategy. So I'm just gonna use that and apply it to my brushstroke. The minute this becomes formulaic, or I can repeat it somewhere else, I'm gonna stop, because what I want out of this is precisely variation and diversity. So I'm gonna not force, but I'm gonna encourage myself to detect that variation. Yeah, this is going well. I think this is going well. All right, just gonna bring some of that blue. I think there's some coolness there. And you can start already seeing then some psychedelic kind of like paisley shapes, but I'm just not gonna get too trapped with that because I'm not ready for that yet. A lot of like psychedelic loops and curves. And there's blue right here. So I'm gonna bring some blue. And you know, we suggested, if you have it, we put some Prussian blue and Viridian green. These are like the surprise guests on our palette. And I think I need the Prussian blue if I have it. Viridian. And I don't have Prussian blue on this paint box, but I have cobalt teal. We don't use anything with cobalt in our regular things, but this is not for regular things. Ooh, very interesting. Wow, great combination, Amanda. great combination, Payne's gray and phthalo green. Phthalo green, and it's the first cousin of Prussian blue, I would say. So on the spot, Amanda. Wow, when you don't use a paint for a long time, it just hardens inside of the tube, doesn't it? Okay, so I'm just gonna put those two tones. A blue that it's not too blue and a green that it's not too green, essentially. We don't have to have the exact color. So that means a greenish blue and a bluish green. Sorry, that was stupid. Oh my gosh. If I can open it. But yeah, we found that those two colors and anything outside of that cold area, we used the yellow ochre. The yellow ochre was a great substitute. I'm gonna do something crazy. Okay, sorry, that Kion would have killed me. My gosh.
What's happening?
No, the cube is so stuck that I use my teeth.
Oh, I would kill you too, Julio. No.
I know, no, that's not good. But anyhow, so good. But thanks, Jen.
Amanda's asking us to repeat the part about the yellow ochre, Julio. When did you use yellow
yeah,
ochre?
so thanks, Jen. So essentially, so these are the two colors that we brought, and those are very cold colors. But when the light gets refracted through the liquid, there's also yellow variations and yellowy stuff and warm stuff that it's a little bit different than the browns that we have. So instead of bringing yellow, because anything with yellow paint will make this sort of like a green mess, we use yellow ochre if there's any warmth or any dash that we need to add, any dash of warmer color. Sometimes straight up if it's clear, and sometimes mixed with white. So it's a way of bringing the whole range of temperatures through the liquid without using yellow paint, which I think it could be a disaster to use yellow. It would just not read yellow, it would read green. Okay, so I'm just bringing some blue, and I'm going to start with so Prussian blue or even Viridian green. I think the Viridian green is organic. I'm sorry, I always get confused. The colors that we use are inorganic. I always associate organic with natural, but in regards to pigment, it's the opposite. Inorganic pigments are the natural pigments. Please, Jen, double check that because I think I'm right, but I think I'm 99% right. So
Say that one more time, Julio.
The inorganic pigments are the natural pigments that based on natural minerals, the mineral pigments, and the organic pigments are the chemical ones. I always make myself a mess or make a mess of using the right approach because I feel I associate organic with natural because organic food and stuff and nature. And then when it comes to painting, I know that it's reversed. My point here is that organic pigments that are made with artificial ingredients have like a tinting quality that's so powerful. You have to be very careful. And first of all, if you go into the actual purest approach to painting, like super ridiculous, but some people swear by it. Some people are against mixing inorganic base paint with organic base paint. In other words, if you have a burnt sienna and you have a Prussian blue, you would not be able to mix them together in the same palette. But that is because they're nuts, not because it cannot happen. You can mix inorganic, which are the earth-based, with organic, which are the chemistry formulated. There are no instructions that say that you cannot do that. I don't know the exact reason why a few people say that it's not good to have them on the same palette. Either you use all inorganic or all organic. I'll find out and report back. But anyhow, my point, trying to come back from this technical tangent, is that any pigment that is inorganic, I'm sorry, that is organic, which is chemical based, will have a much stronger tinting quality. And that means tinting quality means that it's much more colorful or powerful when you mix it. So you have to use much less. If you want to do a dash of blue and you've been using inorganic paint, you know that you need to put a lot of it. Because you are getting used to adding a lot of that color, you will grab the same amount of the inorganic paint and it will completely overtake the entire mixture. So Prussian blue is inorganic. If you can fact check that, Jen Eldridge. I'm sorry, organic.
Okay, I was going to say, I think it's the other way, but yes. And everything you've said is correct.
Okay.
The organic and inorganic. It is very confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not even, I don't lose sleep over it. I know that some people say it. We do try to use inorganic only because they are the classic paints.
Mm.
But we do have the organic just in case we need them.
Right. I put a little article on the notes about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't know why some people say it's a no-no to mix them. I've never, it's not on any book or manual or anything. So sometimes some people are annoying. They say annoying things, yes. But I think, you know, learning a little bit, it's the, when using alchemy, this author or writer sort of like brings some categorization and stuff. So I think at some point, learning a little bit more about the material that we use is not a bad idea. Okay, so I'm going to do the sides of the glass. And because it's cylindric, I know if I treat them differently, I'm going to make this glass look like it's wrapping. So it's not all about the water. You know, the water is not the be all and end all thing here. The cylindric aspect of the container of the water is majorly important in this. So what I'm trying to do is bring a little lighter note around to create this sort of like cylindric effect, because I know that that's going to be as important as painting water bubbles inside, which the water bubbles are important. Yes, but are they the most important? No. So there you go. And time-wise, perfect. Yeah, we're going to go 5 minutes over the second hour because we started 5 minutes after 11. So we have a good 20 minutes. And I think this could be, I'm going to explain it. I feel like I want to spend much more time building second nodes rather than moving to detail. But I feel like we're better off if we talk about it and then you decide which path you want to go forward. So details. So as I said, you know, the speckles of white, the bright areas, those feel like, because of the size and the fact that in some places they almost feel like texture, they feel like they are the details of the whole thing. So I think the first detail for me would be the rim. And it's a little lighter. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, if you do the background work, then the rim will be just the cherry on top or the icing on the cake. If you put the rim first and then you just paint on one side and the other side, the rim area is going to start becoming squiggly, and then you're just going to feel like you're carrying excessive weight on this painting. So this is a detail, and in good old Flemish style, we're painting in last. So the rim, it's actually a combination of two lines, one that's darker, one that's lighter. And not only it's a combination of two lines, but they're not following just the same direction. Depending on where they are, they just kind of like intertwine and then untangle again and then intertwine again. So forget about the fact that this is the glass, and then just observe the two, maybe even more lines on the rim and how they stack up depending on where they are. So I see, I'm going to do the lighter line. But I know that the lighter line on the edge is underneath the darker line. And on the side, it stops before the oval reaches the outer point, the most outer point, whatever the most, I should know that. And then on the other side, you know, the order kind of like changes. But sometimes we work or we talk about this when we turn a corner, when we paint something that turns a corner, whether it's transparent or it's human made, there's always a change in value right on the edge. And it's precisely that change of value that gives the illusion of that surface continuing on an area that we don't see. So this happens also on the rim. There is a change in value. And that gives me the opportunity right now to just build a little bit of darkness right here and on the other side. So at the very beginning, this feels overwhelming because it's not contained, it's not compartmentalized in a orderly basis. So we think of a glass of water, we see the glass of water and we're like, oh my gosh, this is like hell. But if you try to set up some anchor points, some rest areas on your painting, whatever it is, you will always be able to bring order or to find order on those areas that at the very beginning, they didn't have any. My oval on this side, it's becoming too much an almond shape. It's too much an almond shape. So not only I have to change that to add the visual effect here, but I have to move that shape. I have to move it. So there are a lot of crescent shapes in different sizes and thickness and thinness in anything cylindric and transparent. So, and by that, I mean like areas that may just create an arch and then they stop. So make sure that you don't connect necessarily one side with the other side just because, you know, it's a regular shape. Okay, so, and then in addition to that, there is a little bit of the glass is wavy. Glass is wavy on the background. So I'm going to try to do equidistant brush strokes to kind of like create the idea of wavy. Oops. Something happened. Okay, I think we're back to, what's this? Okay. Sorry, something happened. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So, yeah, the actual texture, I see some wiggly shapes because of the pattern on the floor. So I'm just going to bring that wiggle on one side and the wiggle on the other side. Yeah, it works. The oil works. What's happening here? Here we go. Okay. All right, so white, yes. Let's kind of like bring the white. So that would be a detail, and the white spots would be another detail. So I'm gonna use a brush without any oil because I know that there are several areas. So I'm gonna bring those areas first. There's one right here. And then there are some spots right at the bottom. These are just floating specks of white that they seem to be placed in random places. But that is going to give the illusion of transparency. And they're not the same shape. They're not the same shape. And they're not even the same color. All the points of light reflecting from the outside environment, I see color now. I see totally color. I see a little bit of this color right here. And I'm going to start using a little bit of the yellow ochre. Yeah, see, if you try the yellow ochre with some white, you'll notice that it has a nice quality to it, it's like a warmer light. I'm not going to do the bubbles. You know, I think like after you pour the water, there's some bubbles that happen. I'm not going to do the bubbles, but I need to now to kind of like darken certain spots because this is definitely much darker. Be careful with edges that are way too conforming or brush strokes. Okay, so you don't want to drag the paint too much and then suddenly stop. Yeah, I think so. All right, this is building. We're building momentum right now. Going back to this concept, try to avoid treating your painting surface as a burial ground where you kind of like add brush strokes over brush strokes over brush strokes, and then the only thing that happens is that you're burying several paintings one on top of each other. So try to build. This is so fun. There's a double line there. So I'm just going to bring some white. We've never done this before. Jen, I think this is the first time we're doing this. How about that?
See, every class you learn something new.
Totally. we have to give credit to the Lowe's Hotel for proposing this. We were gonna do, I think we were gonna do the white flags, but to sort of like adjust it to the hotel environment, we were gonna use white napkins and kind of like fold them or use them to cover something, so make it more like hotel appropriate. But then Jennifer proposed a glass of water, and I thought it was just such a clever thing. Okay, I'm gonna use like some oil, just oil, because there are certain spots where the edge is totally blurry. And again, it just happens at the edges, the distortion at the edges. Also, there is a mismatch edge. So the water level, the lighter part of the water level seems to be going to the edge. But then when it comes from the other side, there's a gap. It's not continuous. There's something that breaks it, and it's in a different place. So there is a breakage happening on the sides. Yeah. And I'm gonna, perhaps this could be a good moment to build a little bit the contour of the sides. I left a little bit alone. This needs to be a little bit lighter. The more we see, the more things show up, the more we observe. So there's definitely a lighter approach here. And then white, again, some white psychedelic waves. White psychedelic waves. A little bit darker on the background, the back part. Just amazing. I think how color changes before our eyes. It doesn't change. It's our eyes getting more refined, or in appreciating the distinctions between them. Yeah, this is better. And I see some pink floating on top. I'm gonna do some pink floating on top. And I see some lavender. So mixing the light blue and the light pink can give you a nice lavender. And the water here, it's definitely, we can go now as dainty as we want. So I feel like now it's a good time to kind of like build detail. Smaller broken strokes inside. Okay, here we go. I need to put more dark underneath the water line. It's not dark enough. There needs to be more contrast. What a great subject to practice in a safe way almost, because there's no, I don't have to be exact. And yep, that worked. Again, look at the areas with high contrast. I'm just adding bits and pieces. I'm not reworking. I'm not reworking in the sense like putting codes or anything like that. I'm just adding bits and pieces. And that does the trick. I need to work on the bottom, see-through at the bottom. This is, that needs a little bit more work. And I was thinking of something, never mind. I was like thinking of, yeah, the May Sarton poem. It feels very quaint and easy. You know, she's not trying to be inaccessible with her poem. But I read it a few times, and the more I read it, the more nostalgic I felt, because I don't remember the last time I drank well water. And we were kind of like talking about scarcity and how we didn't want to make the email too long, but as you know, there was, what was the reason for that, Jen? Remember when restaurants would not serve you water unless you requested it?
Yeah, I think it was just because of the drought.
The drought, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, but anyhow, well, you know, that's where we're headed. You know, I think it may take longer or shorter time, but this will be it is already a luxury. But when I read about the well water, I remember when I was a kid drinking water from a little creek, and it did taste like nature. You know, when she says that it tastes of rock and root and earth and rain, you know, doesn't taste like that when you buy it at the store, or you forget about the faucet. But yeah, anyhow, I just wanted to kind of like bring not only a sense of how much I'm loving working on this, and how much I look forward to continue for the next 2 weeks adding. I want to add a lot more, and perhaps even create like another version. But at the same time, not forgetting that conceptually, this feels very special in the sense that we're painting something that it's becoming more and more a luxury. Who knows this coming summer what the heck we're gonna have to go through. One of the predictions or forecasts of that lady that we use as inspiration for the white flags. One of the chapters is water wars. And that's something that a lot of very smart people are already projecting, conflicts between people and nations regarding water wars, the lack of it. So I think I'm gonna start slowing down or starting the grinding to a pause stage of the last period. I use some color that's barely noticeable. I'll take a picture and then I'll post it. There is some teal, the cobalt teal. And then I added some, I didn't add any viridian, but I feel like, you know, there's a lot more purple and lavender that I need to add. But at this point, this would be almost like a third color notes. I feel like this needs to be worked out a lot more, but I'm really happy about the line, the water level, and then the water surface behind. I think that really got very nicely developed with the shorter time that we had. So this is what's going to happen. In about a minute, we're going to stop the recording, but we're not going to leave. We're going to take a 10-minute break. We're going to return. Our local time will be 1:15 in case you're joining us from a different geographical location. but we'll give ourselves 10 minutes to drink water and also use the restroom. That's what I do. And then sort of like breathe in, stretch, because we put so much focus and concentration that we really get stiff. And then we'll return. Please do your final touches, upload to the folder or text us the image so we can upload it. And then we'll stop the recording. And then when we reconvene later in 10 minutes, we won't be recording, and we'll open microphones and cameras if you want to jump in, but you don't have to. All right, we'll see you in 10 minutes.